This is part 2 of my video about my 2019 hike of the Pacific Crest Trail. If you haven't checked out part 1 yet, I would suggest doing that just so you can get the full story. Otherwise, let's pick it up in July of 2019, right after I've just hiked out of Crater Lake National Park and continuing north.
Oregon will always remind me of mosquitoes. The bloodthirsty bugs swarm you in clouds as you walk through the damp forest, latching onto shirt sleeves and any exposed skin, driving you totally insane. Not much you can do about it though, since there's so much water left over from a big snow year, now collected in puddles, ponds, and lakes. That, combined with the summer heat, makes it peak season for mosquitoes. Up here, the trail connects volcanic peaks which rise above the sea of green trees. As you edge north, one peak fades into the distance as another one appears on the horizon ahead, and you know you'll be up close to that one in a few days. It's the dog days of summer now, hot and sweaty in the middle of July. At least there's plenty of little lakes to cool off in. Some stretches of the trail here feel monotonous, winding along mile after mile, down below the canopy of the muggy forest. But eventually a good view and a pretty sunset makes me forget all that. I'm seeing this whole area for the first time anyway, so I remind myself to appreciate it all, and to not get too caught up in the mileage or discomfort. When else would I get a chance to do this, take this much time off work? I mean, who knows if or when I'll ever see some of these places again. From below the Sisters Peaks, you look out across a lava rock wasteland to the volcanic summits further north, with snow-capped Mount Jefferson out there on the horizon. Keep chipping away until eventually the Sisters are behind you. It can all seem so vast, so I remind myself to take the time to enjoy the small examples of nature's beauty right at my fingertips. And the next thing you know, you're nearing the next peak. There's Mount Jefferson. Quite an impressive peak. Enjoyed this great campsite and sunrise looking out at him. Get around Jefferson, and then next up is Mount Hood, out there far in the distance. A couple more days of hiking through the forest, and we're there, up close. On the PCT, you can't miss the breakfast buffet at Timberline Lodge. It's an all-you-can-eat godsend for hungry hikers. Mount Hood has some spectacular formations of rock and ice up high that tumble down into steep side canyons containing rushing milky creeks. Before I know it, I'm getting close to the Columbia River Gorge, almost out of Oregon, with Washington State beyond. I've never set foot in Washington before, so I'm really looking forward to seeing the mountains there. I crossed the Bridge of the Gods in the Columbia River at sunrise, enjoying the peace and beauty of the moment alone. Immediately on the other side, I'm greeted with the big, juiciest berries I've ever had. So, needing all the calories I can get, I feast like a bear on the sweet trailside snacks. Mount Adams, the first big peak in Washington, is another volcano with some awesome glaciers clinging to the upper slopes. All these volcanic peaks, from Lassen and Shasta back in California to Crater Lake and Mount Hood in Oregon, are strung together along the Cascade Volcano Arc and the Pacific Ring of Fire. Now as Mount Adams gradually fades into the rear view, I can finally see ahead Mount Rainier, the tallest, most glaciated of them all, the snowiest place in the lower 48 states. It was at this point that I truly felt like I was walking through a Bob Ross painting, a work of art amongst the mountains and surrounded by countless happy trees. But the serenity was interrupted by an intense storm of torrential rain, hail, plus thunder and lightning right overhead. After the storm passed, I still had 6 miles to make it to my campsite for the night. The clearing storm did make for some dreamy cloud formations in the valleys down below though, and even the sun popped back out for a moment. After a cold and soggy night, it's back on the trail, through clearing fog and an eerie burn zone from previous wildfires. I was expecting Washington to be wet. I mean, half of it is basically a rainforest, so I'm not really surprised. I would much prefer this compared to previous years when there were some big wildfires up here, with smoke spoiling the views and clean mountain air. So for me, it really is cool to see such a lush, green landscape, and the differences in nature here, especially compared to California. The sights, smells, and just the whole feeling of the place is unique. One of the coolest things about the PCT is being way up in Oregon and Washington and running into friends that I'd made back in Southern California and catching up and hiking together again after not seeing each other for months. It really is a fluid, nomadic community of hikers, all on the move and working toward the same goal. In the middle of Washington, the terrain changes from the rolling hills with isolated volcanoes into a more expansive range of mountains with deep, glacially carved valleys. It means more elevation gain and loss along the trail, but brings added excitement as you cross a high point and see a whole new area open up before you, which you know you're about to walk through, while getting more intimate scenery in different canyons and basins below. I'm starting to feel the effects of the trail now. The time on feet, the mileage, tiredness, hunger, and my gear and clothes are starting to fall apart. My tent zipper won't close. I'll always remember this one night in particular. After another 20-something mile day, I set up my tent in the dark, in the rain, on sloping, bumpy ground, only to be awakened in the middle of the night by a mouse scampering around inside my tent and on top of the sleeping bag. So I kicked him out, managed to doze back off, and woke up in the morning to more rain. One moment I'm totally miserable, but somehow going to a place of zen, I'm able to ignore all that and lose myself in the comfort of a hot cup of coffee for breakfast. I try to embrace the whole experience and bask in the glory of the remote North Cascades Mountains, knowing that Canada is only about a week away. The weather improves, I get some nice sunny days, and the scenery continues to be spectacular. And just like that, I'm at the Canadian border, which you can see demarcated by the clear-cut strip through the forest. I relish in the moment and think back to the beginning at the Mexican border and all the miles I've walked, all the amazing people I've met, the incredible landscapes I've come through since then. But at the same time, I know I'm not done. I'm heading back to California to finish the part of the trail through the Sierra that I skipped over earlier in the summer. A chunk of 600 miles still left to complete. Deja, the angel that she is, picks me up at a remote trailhead, and we catch a flight from Seattle to San Francisco, then drive up back to her home in Yosemite. After a few days there, she drops me off down at Walker Pass, where I left the trail in May. And what a contrast of landscape from lush green Washington to back on the edge of the Mojave Desert. I feel like I've been transported to a different world, and it takes me a moment to adjust to my new surroundings. The days are getting shorter, and the nights are a little colder. It's starting to feel like fall now. But being a Sierra local, I'm excited to get through my home mountain range. Plus, September is typically a great time to be out here, as the summer bugs and heat are gone, as are some of the people. Here, the PCT overlaps with the John Muir Trail, which, although remote, can become a busy hiker highway in July and August. Either way, this is the longest stretch of unbroken wilderness on the entire PCT, where the trail does not cross a road for over 200 miles. All of this would have been buried under snow had I tried to come through with everyone else earlier in the summer, and the hike would have involved using micro spikes on my shoes with an ice axe in hand in order to safely cross the high passes, like Forester Pass, the highest point on the trail at 13,000 feet, and Glen Pass, which you can see here. As I mentioned before, my decision to skip over the Sierra earlier in the year was because it was more important for me to make sure I got up to Oregon and Washington, places I'd never been before and wanted to see. I had hiked the John Muir Trail a couple years earlier, so I'd seen this 200-mile stretch before also. For that hike, I was going southbound, so it was cool to see it all now hiking north. And as much as I loved Washington, I still feel like the High Sierra is my favorite part of the PCT because of all the alpine basins, deep valleys, craggy granite peaks, picturesque lakes and rivers, high passes with amazing views, all connected in a vast, rugged landscape. For me, coming through the High Sierra in the conditions at this time of the year was so much more enjoyable. Even now in September, you can still see how much snow is still left clinging to the peaks, a testament to just how much the mountains got over the winter. At Mammoth Mountain, where I work, they recorded over 200 inches of snowfall in just February 2019 alone. Even now in the Sierra, I'm still bumping into people that I met in April in the desert, or that I met in Oregon in July, which is such a novelty and a treat. When you think you're way out in the wilderness, far from anything, seeing a familiar face out here can make your day and raise your spirits. Finally, I get to where the PCT goes by my home of Mammoth Lakes, so I take a couple of rest days to visit friends, enjoy pizza, beer, and football on Sunday, and get a much-needed shower. Shout out to Nikki for letting me crash at your place, and to all my other friends who were down to hang out and help me out with a ride. And back on trail, I'm only a couple days away from actually hiking through Yosemite. Once again, Deja picks me up where the trail crosses Tioga Road in Tuolumne Meadows, and again, I find myself down in Yosemite Valley. This is a special occasion as it's our anniversary. With that is our tradition of participating in Yosemite Facelift, the annual cleanup event where hundreds of volunteers roam the valley and the park, picking up trash and working on beautification projects. I was only planning on being off trail for a couple days, but it ends up turning into almost a week. The first winter storm of the season hit the High Sierra, so Tioga Road is closed for 3 days, blocking my access to return to the trail. When I eventually get back on trail, it's frosty, with some sections covered in several inches of snow. Having the extra unplanned days off due to the weather got me out of my rhythm physically and mentally. I had some really cold nights coming out of the northern part of Yosemite. It just felt like my mind wasn't in it anymore. I was out of money, losing motivation, and starting to feel like there was other things I needed to be doing. I needed to get back to Mammoth, get my job back for the winter, and find a place to live. I miss my girlfriend and my friends, and the comforts of home and the luxury of sleeping in a bed and cooking in a kitchen. So I decided to call it a day on the PCT and bail off at Snoqualmie Pass, hitching a ride down to Kennedy Meadows North. Then of course it's back to Yosemite. Part of me is bummed not to have finished the entire PCT in one season, but I realize, as cool as that would have been, that wasn't the most important part for me. I really wanted to simply have the experience of backpacking for an entire summer, living outside, seeing new places, meeting new people, having a nomadic adventure, and I'd gotten all of that and more. It really was the time of my life. And the PCT will still be there, so I hope to go and finish that last 300 miles some other time.